Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast with your hosts, Mike Walters and Eddie Jones. This is the number one home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
All right, welcome back to another weekly Ducks and Pucks podcast. We have a kind of a crazy week here that happened. The Ducks win a couple games, they lose a couple games, players getting injured, players getting recalled, all kinds of action going on this week, and we'll get you all caught up on that, answer some of your fan questions at the end, and then give you some updates about the website and other news. Let's get started and go back to the dreaded Pittsburgh game, Eddie. This was the game that the Ducks did not start out well in. They ended up giving up 3 goals in the first period, one to Carl Hagelin, and basically the Ducks got off to a poor start, and it just kind of carried over the rest of the game, and the Ducks could never recover after that 3-1 deficit.
Yeah, kind of a bad time to run into Pittsburgh. I mean, it wasn't a great effort from the Ducks in general. I mean, they did outshoot Pittsburgh. But just, a poor start to begin the first period. I mean, they've been relatively good in the first period throughout the whole season. Chris Kunitz scores a goal early. Connor Sheary, their rookie, he ends up potting another one. Getzlaf gets him back in it with 50 seconds to go. And then in Ducks fashion, that it seems to be lately, is they'll score a goal and then get scored on right after. And who else but Carl Hagelin on the breakaway. And that seemed to be the story of the night is breakaways, as Crosby got 2 goals and 4 points, and both his goals were on breakaways as well. So just a poor effort all around. I mean, Gibson's had his struggles in his hometown. I mean, we remember his debut where I believe they lost 6-2 as well to Pittsburgh, and not a good effort from him in this game either. But they moved on after this game.
Yeah, I think the biggest story in this game was really Sidney Crosby. I mean, he got 2 breakaways in this game. The second one getting scored on and getting hooked down, with the delayed penalty. He still puts it in the net. And I just think the defense in this game, they just could not keep up with the speed of the Penguins. Too many breakaways, too many odd man rushes. And that's kind of what really did it in for the Ducks in this game, Eddie.
Yeah, and I think it's a different Pittsburgh team than they faced when they first faced them this season. They were on a roll at this point, just like we were. And they've been playing better and a different style, a new head coach. He really focused, like you said, on the speed in this game. Bringing in Hagelin helped them with that aspect as well. They've got some really fast guys, obviously Sidney Crosby as well. A couple of the rookies, Connor Sheary, and some, a couple other guys as well. I mean, when we looked at their lineup, no Malkin, a bottom 6 of mostly AHL guys and some fourth liners in there. I thought, this is a good time, even with Crosby doing so well, to face the Penguins. I mean, Malkin has been their guy this season up until Crosby, started heating up, and boy, was I wrong. They still showed. I mean, even without Malkin, they're a good team, and obviously when you've got one of arguably the best player in hockey and Sidney Crosby on your team, you're never out of a game.
That's for sure. That's exactly what Pittsburgh did to the Ducks, and we talked about this week too, and we thought that the Ducks would get 6 points. So after this game, I thought, here we go. Are the Ducks going to have a poor week, and you and I are going to have eggs on our face, or what? But luckily, the Ducks got back at it. In the next 3 games, we'll talk about. They earned points in all the games. Could have won all 3. They won 2 of the 3. So the Ducks did earn 5 points, which was close to what we thought. So it wasn't as bad, and they went right back at it to Philadelphia after the Pittsburgh game, and basically the first period in this game, Eddie, was reminiscent of how Pittsburgh played against the Ducks. This time the Ducks took it to Philly. It was really Rickard Rakell just going after him, getting 2 goals in the first period. The Ducks outshooting Philadelphia 15-5 in this first period to just dominate. And from that point on, Philadelphia basically tried to play the physical game, which against the Ducks, that usually doesn't work, especially with the additions on the team, Stewart and Perron and some of the other players now, Garbutt as well. And the Ducks, they took it to Philly physically and on the scoreboard, Eddie.
Yeah, a very gritty game, and just another good effort by Rakell. He's had a great season, obviously this far, a huge step forward, and when he touches the puck, he's just you can sense he's going to do something special. Every time he touches the puck, he's got that that aspect to his game. I not to compare him to Patrick Kane, but every time you see Patrick Kane touch the puck, he can do something special. Then Raquel has that about him. Every time he touches the puck, he's going to try and make a creative play, do something special. And we saw that in this game. He had 2 goals in the first period, and the Ducks got off to a great start, and something we're more used to than the game against Pittsburgh. And then we saw Chris Stewart. Obviously, he got the penalty shot, and now 3 for 3 in his career. I was surprised to see he'd already had 2, and he scored on both of them. He's 3 for 3 in his career. Maybe we'll see him in the shootout a little bit more often when he comes back. Obviously, we'll get into it in a little bit that he broke his jaw or fractured his jaw in the Columbus game. But a good effort from the Ducks. Philly fought back in the third period, outshot the Ducks 15-5, and they ended up getting a power play goal. They did a good job shutting down Giroux and Spear and Simmons and them for most of the game. Obviously, they grabbed the power play goal, but it was a great effort. A solid effort away from home, and almost a perfect road game.
Yeah, I thought the Ducks played well. Like you said, the second period they pushed back. Stewart with the penalty shot goal really put Philly back after they were fighting it out, trying to get back into this. It was nice to see Cogliano too get that empty netter goal. He had gotten called for that double minor high sticking at the end of the second period against Simmons, which that play, kind of irritated me. And I'll tell you why is because Cogliano basically hits Simmons' stick there and it redirects into Simmons' face. Then there's no initial penalty on the play called. And then later on, they do call it because, the linesman can go over and tell the referees that there's a penalty or whatnot. And that wasn't the part that really irritated me. But, with Cogliano, Eddie, we've seen this over the years where these types of plays happen to him where he's hit in the face, bleeding, no call, nothing. And it just was unfortunate to see it happen to him on the other end. I mean, it was the right call, but the Iron Man's been hit so many times, and how many times have we seen him, bleeding on the ice? And I mean, it's like no calls are, given his way.
Yeah, I think it was nobody saw the call. That's what bothered me. Nobody initially saw it, and I honestly don't believe the linesman saw it. I think they just saw that he was bleeding. They missed the call. They assumed it was probably a high stick. There was no complaints really from Cogliano, but to come back and I know he was bleeding, but to give him a double minor after missing the call, it's kind of disappointing to see that. Obviously the Ducks were up 3-0 at the time, but yeah, it's just a weird call. I mean, we've seen a lot of them lately. Obviously the what Dave Tippett when we saw against Arizona, where he got the longest challenge in history and was able to challenge the goal and overturn it, and then we see this play where the refs completely missed the call and then they go back and change it, but. There's nothing you can do. I mean, luckily it didn't really impact the outcome of the game. If it was a closer game and that had either put them ahead or tied the game, I think we would have been talking about this a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, you know what? Philadelphia ended up doing themselves in on that because when they had the power play, Simmons goes and cross-checks Vatanen in the back while he's almost, laying down the ice. Voracek jumps in and he hits Silfverberg, and, he ends up getting a penalty. And this is just 5 seconds into the power play after the Cogliano penalty. So, Philly, they really had a chance to get back into this game. They did, get a goal later, but, if they would have kept their heads cool and played better on this power play instead of trying to take it out on the Ducks players, they really could have scored during that 4 minutes. And, then the other goal by Simmons, they would have brought them within one. But, that's the way that they wanted to play, and it worked to the Ducks' advantage.
Yeah, they were really frustrated, especially Giroux and Voracek and Simmons that top line. The only issue with the Flyers is having those 3 guys on that top line. If you can shut them down, there's not much else that they can do, and you've seen that a lot happen with them this season. They get frustrated easy. Kessler was out there against Giroux and Voracek and Simmons, and he did a great job of shutting them down. Barring the power play goal, they were non-existent this night, and you could see it in their frustration, and they were taking bad penalties because of it.
Yeah, and I think the refs and the net saved Voracek from getting rocked because if you saw Kessler after that play, when Voracek hit Silfverberg, Kessler looked like he wanted to rip his head off. I mean, he was, livid, rightly so. after that. But the refs held him back, and the net was in the way, so nothing further happened on that, which was good because Philly ended up getting a penalty, and we had 4-on-4 instead of that long 4-minute penalty kill. So that worked in the Ducks' favor, and the Ducks came out on top on this game. They played pretty well overall. They weathered the storm from Philly in the third. Like you said, they got more shots, but they ended up pulling up the win, Eddie. And then we went to Columbus, and we just didn't do so well in this game, but still got a point.
Yeah, they started out pretty well, like you said. It wasn't a great effort by far. Like, yes, they were up 2-0, but Columbus was playing really well this game. I mean, they're a team that's in pretty much the basement of the NHL, and they fought hard in this game. Perron got the first goal of the game in the first period, and they were playing a good defensive road game for most of the first period and the second period. You could really say Columbus almost dominated the second period. They played physical. They had a lot of shots, a lot of good chances. And then out of nowhere, Getzlaf feeds a pass to Santorelli and he scores. And we think we're going to go into the third period up 2-0. And then 7 seconds later, William Karlsson, former Anaheim Duck, comes in and he scores his 7th of the season. And Columbus is right back in it. And then they come out of the third period strong. And Ryan Garbutt, well, I mean, I don't think anybody would have thought he would have started this way in Anaheim, but he ends up sniping one over top of Korpisalo, and you would think from there on the Ducks have been so good at closing out games they'd be able to close it out, but Saad gets them back in it, and then a power play goal by Brandon Dubinsky, and Columbus has tied the game. Nothing gets solved in overtime, and I mean, at least they did pick up a point in this game because I think Columbus deserved the win, but the Ducks should have closed it out up 3-1.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the way that the points went in this, obviously the Ducks got 1 and Columbus got the 2. And like you said, they could have had an early goal that was called back. Basically the Ducks, for the second time, blew a 2-goal lead in the third period. So it was unfortunate, but that was the way it worked. And the Ducks, went down in overtime. Unfortunately, the shootout wasn't kind to them. Silfverberg and Perry not able to score on this one. But like we said, the Ducks came out with a point. The bigger story is obviously Chris Stewart. As we found out later, he gets in that fight and ends up getting his jaw fractured, Eddie, and he's now going to be out 4 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, and that is disappointing after you saw how well that Perron, Getzlaf, and Stewart line have been playing. I mean, Getzlaf did leave the game as well with what seems to be a broken nose because he comes into the Chicago game with a full cage. But, it's disappointing. I mean, we all liked how he was playing. He got the penalty shot goal the other night. He's up to, I believe, 8 goals on the season. And he's a guy that everybody criticized early on, and he's really, proven that he belongs on this team. He plays plays the physical style well, chips in on goals here and there, and really contributing to the secondary scoring. And he's going to be missed. I mean, hopefully he's back in time for playoffs because he's that type of guy. He's a physical guy. We're going to need him, and he's going to hopefully slot back in on that line and with Perron and Getzlaf.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the recovery time. I mean, they said 4 to 8 weeks, but I mean, I would look at it probably being closer to the 4 weeks. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But I'm hoping he's not out too long, and we'll talk about this too as far as trades and whatnot a little bit after we cover the Chicago game. But with that, the Ducks called up Nick Ritchie again for the Chicago game, and we thought he was going to play. And then to everybody's surprise, Stevens, myself, and I think everybody, he ends up not playing. And Harry Zolderschek comes in instead and plays on the fourth line for the Ducks. And they go into this game against Chicago. The Ducks had played Chicago well twice earlier in the season, losing both in overtime. And no surprise here, this game goes to overtime, even though the Ducks really did dominate this game. I mean, they outshot Chicago 44 to 23. They outhit them 52 to 26. They won 10 more faceoffs in this game as well. But you have to give your kudos to Crawford there. I mean, he made some spectacular saves, Eddie, but at least the Ducks were able to get the win in overtime and get the 2 points.
Yeah, and I mean, I think everybody is looking forward to another playoff series between these teams because every game that Chicago and Anaheim plays, since the playoff series last year, it's just great hockey. It always seems to be close, always goes to OT most of the time, and just like in the playoffs and in the beginning of the season, the Ducks have been unlucky in OT against Chicago. But, I think it was a great effort. I mean, barring Corey Crawford, just playing out of his mind in this game. The Ducks could have run away with this. I mean, he made some excellent saves. Gibson was playing well. Unlucky on that first Seabrook shot, he didn't really see it, and then obviously the second one goes in off Lindholm, was going completely wide. But there's nothing you can do. You gotta kind of deal with that and move on. And they played an excellent road game in a hard arena to win games, and they finally grabbed that one in overtime. They started off OT a little bit scary, and it's what we've seen for most of the season. Somehow, they end up missing assignments, and guys get in behind. Patrick Kane had a breakaway. Getzlaf did a great job at getting back, and they get a fortunate penalty and too many men on the ice. Kane jumps to the boards a little bit early, and Getzlaf capitalizes, and finally we get an OT win this season, and 0 for 5 so far until this game, and just a great road win. Without Crawford keeping them in there, I think it would have been we wouldn't have had to even go to overtime.
Yeah, I agree that, and also, I mean, it was really Brent Seabrook that was the only one keeping Chicago in this game. He's burned the Ducks earlier in the season and getting points. In this game, he had 2 goals, 1 on the power play. And if you look at the way the Ducks came out, though, I mean, you had scoring from all over the place. You had Silfverberg getting that gritty goal in front, Perron chipping in, and then obviously Getzlaf with the game winner to take him out. And the Ducks did play better in this game against Chicago, but, they played well against them the whole season. If you look at Kane and Taves in this game, they both only had 1 shot on net. So Kessler did his job against Taves. The rest of the team did their job against Kane. And the Ducks really eliminated their chances. And this game, honestly, the first period and part of the second was kind of boring. I mean, there wasn't really a lot going on in this game early on. And then it started to open up a little bit in the second period. And finally, the Ducks were able to pull it out. So this is a huge win. It's a statement-type game. The Ducks are going down the streak here. We're neck and neck with the Sharks now. 1 point behind them, it seems like every night, or either tied. So a big win. Going into this next week's games, Eddie.
Yeah, and when you can shut down, I mean, the 3 best forwards on Chicago. I mean, they had a couple power play chances too, where the forwards were just shut down. I mean, like you said, Taves had 1 shot, Kane had 1 shot, Panarin had no shots, and those are the 3 guys you're gonna have to focus on in this team, and they're on 2 separate lines, so shutting them down is a little bit hard. I know Kessler was tasked with shutting down Taves, and he did a great job again, and then the whole team, really, whoever was on the ice against Kane and Panarin, were out there and having to force them to make bad plays and block shots, and they did a really good job limiting the chances. I mean, winning the amount of faceoffs they did was helpful. I mean, Taves was the only one on their team above 50%. He was at 58, and the Ducks won 36 faceoffs to Chicago's 26, and it was just a great effort. I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to Kessler trying to shut down one of the best players in the league, and for the whole team in general, just shutting down this team and having a great effort in a hard building to play in.
Yeah, and some other notes from this game too. This was the Ducks' 800th win that they talked about, so that was kind of special, getting it against the tough team of the Blackhawks. Also, Silfverberg's goal there was his 100th career point, so that was another added bonus in here. So everything looked really good for the Ducks in this game, the win and everything. The only bad news, unfortunately, that came out of it is Gibson got ran into at the end of the second period. He ended up finishing the period, and then Anderson came in. And the latest, at least at the time that we're recording this, is that according to Eric Stevens, Hudobin was recalled. And as far as Gibson and what kind of injury he has, we don't know specifically what it is. They haven't said officially, but obviously getting kicked in the head, you have to start thinking of concussion-type issues or symptoms similar to that. Again, at least at this time, it's not been reported whether or not that's been an issue. But I'm hoping Hudobin's just recalled for precautionary reasons, Eddie.
Yeah, it was an awkward play. I mean, a flying leg almost off bounce, and he gets a knee to the head. It did look bad, but it wasn't too hard of an impact. And I mean, he did play the rest of the period, which is sort of a good sign. Obviously, him leaving isn't good, and hopefully it's not a concussion. I think they might have taken him out of the game for precautionary reasons. He might have had some symptoms that were worrying them. And I think, like you said, Hudobin coming up, just because we have a game coming up so early tomorrow, being at 1 p.m. Pacific, having him, possibly having to go into the game if Freddie's not able to go, or if he has to come in as a backup, is not a great option. He should get his rest. They have a back-to-back. So I think, Hudobin coming up is just precaution. I think you would expect Freddie to probably start against Calgary, and then we'll see, if Gibson needs to be out for longer or if he's ready to go against Edmonton.
Yeah, exactly. And I know obviously when we find out more, we'll update you on the website and social media and all of that as well. Kind of want to talk about some of the players here that have been doing better for the Ducks, Eddie. You got to look at Ryan Getzlaf, 19 points in his last 15 games, 3 goals and 16 assists, as opposed to 35 games with 23 points earlier in the season. So, I mean, that's huge. The way Getzlaf's been playing, obviously being on Perron and Stewart as his teammates has helped as well. That's going to have to change up. We saw Santorelli and Garbutt playing with him, so we'll find out, who he's going to play with on Monday. But you have to be really happy with the effort of Getzlaf. He's shooting the puck more, gets the game winner against Chicago. Just all around, he's been doing a lot better, Eddie.
Yeah, and him and Perron are both plus 10 now on the season. I mean, that line has done everything right. I mean, defensively they've been great. They haven't been scored on too many times when they've been on the ice, and every time they're on the ice, they seem to make something happen. If it's not a goal, it's a chance, or they get a good forecheck in, and it's just a good compliment. I mean, Getzlaf and Perron are both big physical guys who they can make something happen on the puck, and then Stewart compliments that too as he crashes the net. He's physical as well, and I think obviously him not being on that line is going to hurt them a bit, but I believe Santorelli was on there for a bit, Garbutt was. They're trying out different guys, and it still worked. Perron ended up scoring, and they had a great night against Chicago.
Yeah, and Getzlaf's got 4 multi-point games in a row now. The way he's been streaking lately. And, you talk about Perron, he's got, 3 multi-point games since he's come over to Anaheim in 11 games now. He's got 5 goals and 6 assists in those 11 games. He's scored, at least a point in 8 of those 11 games. And, I mean, that's just a crazy improvement. I mean, you look at how he did in Pittsburgh in 43 games, and he only had 4 goals and 12 assists. So he's already passed the goal mark, in 1/4 of the time in Anaheim, Eddie. And hopefully he just keeps on producing.
Yeah, and one thing he said is he likes playing with Getzlaf because he slows the play down, and that benefits his style of play because he likes to do the same thing. And I think that's the big difference. I mean, when he played in St. Louis, they slowed the play down. He probably played with Backus at the time, who plays a similar style to Getzlaf, and I think that play benefits him. I mean, he is still a pretty quick player, but playing out with Crosby or with Malkin or with these guys who can just zip up the ice and kind of leave you behind. It doesn't fit his style of play, and obviously he's clicked. I mean, 11 points in 11 games, there's not much more you can ask for. He's shooting. I mean, his shooting percentage went up is one thing we said that's going to have to be key, is he's going to have to up his shooting percentage, and it's up an insane 22.7% right now. I'm sure it will eventually even out, but, the way he's playing right now, it's just great, and I don't think we could ask for any more.
Yeah, exactly, and even to throw it in there, your favorite Duck, Ryan Garbutt, 3 goals in 9 games, 2 of them have been game winners, and he's going to see an increased role too now with Stewart out as well. So I don't know if he's going to be on that line with Getzlaf or not. I mean, he was for a good portion of that game against Chicago. It might depend on the opponent, Eddie, but he's going to add some offense too, and he's going to see some more ice time as well.
Yeah, he's got 2 game winners out of his 3 goals too, and I like how he's played. He's played physical. He's quick. I mean, he's faster, a lot faster than I thought he was, and he never quits. He plays every shift hard. He forechecks hard, and like we saw with his last goal, he gets in it and he just snipes one. He's got a deceptive shot. And he's got a really accurate hard shot, and it's not accurate all the time, but when we've seen so far. He's got 3 goals already in 9 games, which is a lot more than I think a lot of people would have expected from him.
Yeah, definitely. So the Ducks are going to keep rolling. We'll talk about some of the games coming up here, but let's get to some of the fan questions that we have here today. And basically talking about how the Ducks are doing. We have Matt asks us, how deep do you see the Ducks playoff run this year? And I think this question's a little early to talk about, but if the Ducks keep playing the way that they are, Eddie, even with some of the some of these injuries that are happening, I think the Ducks can make another substantial run this year. Will it go all the way to the Stanley Cup or not? I don't know. That's debatable, but I definitely think the Ducks can at least win a first round game, get to a second round, and have a good chance to get back to at least the conference final.
Well, I think they have a shot at beating all these teams. You know they can beat them all, and they're not gonna get swept against any of these teams. But it's a hard trip. I mean, there's no easy games ever. You're most likely gonna play San Jose, or at least LA. You're gonna play one of them in the first round. The way the Pacific Division is shaping up, with the two wildcard teams most likely going to be from the Central, and the second place team in each division plays each other. So if the Kings hold that first spot, it's Anaheim, San Jose in the first round, and that's going to be tough. I mean, San Jose, we all joke about how they've choked in the playoffs and for so long, but it's a different atmosphere in there with a new coach, a new style, and they still got relatively the same players. They're a good team. It's going to be tough for them. I mean, and if you get through them, I mean, your reward is most likely playing LA, unless they get beat by one of the wild card teams in the playoffs. And that's never an easy trip to play against, and most likely you'd play them with they have home ice advantage, and then if you manage to get through that, well, you're probably going to play Dallas or Chicago, and we saw that all three games against Chicago, how close they were this season. I mean, we all remember the Western Conference Final last year. And you get through all them, and then normally you'd be like, oh, okay, it's Eastern Conference, so not too bad. Well, this year, you've got the Washington Capitals, who are just playing out of their mind, and I don't think anybody would bet against them right now of making the Stanley Cup final. That's a hard trip to have to go through all those physical Western Conference battles, and then to have to play the Washington Capitals possibly in the Stanley Cup final. I think they can do it, but it's going to be really, really tough.
I agree, and I think still that the Ducks are going to have to make a move, which, we're going to bring you some trade deadline action. We're going to be on Blab that day, and we'll be reporting stuff live to you, and you guys will be able to sign on there as well. We had a little bit of technical difficulty earlier this week, and we apologize for that, but we will be on there. We will be live. You'll be able to ask questions and whatnot. We'll post the link and all kinds of info as the days come up. And I just think the Ducks still do need to make one more move, Eddie. They bring up Richie. Zolnarchek played instead. They're going to have to figure it out. Stewart's going to be out at least 4 weeks. Horkoff's still serving, his suspension. He's still going to be out for a few weeks too. With the abundance of defensemen, and obviously we've heard some of the rumors and whatnot. I think they still need to make one more move to, get all the way. That's just the way I look at it. Now, unfortunately, if they didn't have the issues with Stewart and Horkoff, maybe they probably wouldn't have to make a move. And this kind of leads into the power play situation. The Ducks have been 4 for 27 with Theodore out. So, the Ducks are going to make a move, Eddie. I think they'll, try to trade a defenseman and try and get another forward, because that's really what they're going to need to, push this team, I think, over the top in the playoffs.
Yeah, and there's some interesting names out there. From the rumors that I've heard, you can never say if they're true or not. You don't really know if they're true, but with some guys, Murray's mostly looking for apparently a young guy who he can control. He doesn't really want to bring in an older guy with a big cap hit that has term. But you never know. I mean, there are some good guys out there, like we've mentioned before, Louis Eriksson, Andrew Ladd. Andrew Ladd stuff is heated up with the Jets signing Buffalo to a long-term extension. You would expect him to probably be traded so they can get some assets for him before they lose him. It doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs. Another guy who I haven't mentioned yet this season, and I don't know if many people have really talked about because he's been there for so long, but Eric Staal in Carolina. He's a pending UFA. Coming up this year. He does carry a pretty big cap hit in $8 million, but I don't see the Carolina Hurricanes having any trouble retaining some of that salary to bring in some guys. And they're always looking for some defensemen. They've got some good young ones there now in Ryan Murphy and Noah Hannafin. They've got some good young guys there, but Vatanen wouldn't hurt there, and they're always looking for some young defensemen there for sure. And he'd be a good guy to bring over too. I believe he played on an Olympic team. I don't want to say for sure, but I believe he played on an Olympic team with Perry and Getzlaf at one point in his career, and he would be a good fit. I think he's a big physical forward. I think he'd benefit from playing on the wing with either Kessler or even Getzlaf, and I think he could fit perfectly maybe with Getzlaf and Perron on that line. I mean, he is a big guy. He's similar style a little bit to Getzlaf and a pretty good passer as well. And, that could be an option for them, too. I mean, it is a big salary to bring on, but at a pending UFA, it really is nothing because you don't see them re-signing him. He'll probably go to UFA. So that's another option for them as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Stahl, and that's a big name, and that's one that the Ducks could try and go after. I don't know because of the contract size, like you had mentioned, and that kind of leads into our question from our very own Tyler. He talks about Stamkos and whether or not the Ducks would try to go after him. And again, that's a huge salary, obviously. Now you're talking about even a bigger name, which that's going to involve lots of players if it's going to be something like that. But the news, Eddie, we talked about before the podcast. The word is that something's going to be done by the trade deadline with Stamkos. So I think we may find out come February 29th at least what's going to happen, where he's going to go, or if he's going to stay in Tampa.
Yeah, the thing with some of these other UFAs, like I mentioned, Stahl and Ladd and Eriksson, you're gonna have to give up some stuff, like some pretty valuable prospects or some pretty good roster players to get them. But I mean, the level you would have to give up to get Stamkos. I mean, he's only 26. He's one of the top 10 players in the NHL. You could maybe put him in the top five sometimes the way you can see him play and the skill he possesses. But yeah, it's such a rare situation to have a guy that is such a good player. He, like I said, top 10 in the league, and to possibly be leaving a team at UFA or traded at the deadline. It's a weird situation. He does carry a $7.5 million cap hit right now. Like I said, he is a UFA, so that doesn't really hurt too many teams. Obviously you have to fit him into your lineup, so that's going to be hard if you're against the cap. So that eliminates a lot of teams. Like you probably won't see Chicago or Washington or Pittsburgh. Some of these teams against the cap go for him. But there's definitely some teams out there. I mean, the Ducks have a lot of cap room. They can work it around. They have the assets that Tampa Bay wants, but it's hard to see them move him at the deadline. And I think the only reason it's heated up is because his agent got on and talked to a couple people. I believe Primetime Sports on Sportsnet here. His agent got on and said, the deadline will clear things up. Stamkos has said the same thing, that the deadline will clear things up for them, and you'll get a better idea of what's going on at the deadline. And that's an interesting thing to say because you don't really have to say that. And it's made a lot of people wonder is maybe they trade him at the deadline, because if you don't trade him and you can't sign him and he's resigned to going somewhere else, you lose Steven Stamkos for nothing. I mean, you can't lose a guy of that quality for nothing. Even at a UFA and as a rental, he'll fetch a pretty high price. I mean, he's going to instantly improve any team he goes on it, and some teams will make them favorites. I mean, this is a 50 goal scorer that you could be trading for at the deadline. I mean, I don't think that's happening maybe ever at the trade deadline. So this is going to be huge news. And honestly, I think there is definitely a good chance he does get dealt at the deadline.
Yeah, I agree with you, Eddie. I mean, if Tampa Bay doesn't feel like they're going to be able to re-sign him, I mean, the prudent play is then you trade him and get as much as you can for him, because you don't want a guy like that walking. I mean, that's just insane. Like you said, to see someone like that of that caliber just go bye bye in the summertime, I really highly doubt that's going to happen. So I think Tampa Bay would work it out and get him re-signed. If that doesn't happen, I mean, it's going to be some craziness going on come the trade deadline. And like you said, the Ducks could make a move. They have the room to do it. Obviously, they'd have to give up some serious, players and either prospects, draft picks, or maybe all of the above to do it. But if the Ducks really want to win now, this season, and they go get Stamkos, I mean, look out. The bandwagon in Anaheim is going to be bigger than the one in LA. I'll tell you that much if that actually happens. Now, the chances of it happening, I don't think it's highly likely, but, I'm not going to rule it out. I mean, it's definitely a player I would want on my team. If you want to talk about making us instant contenders this year and the next couple years and really, making a push, we could do it, but it's definitely going to be costly. It's going to cost us some players, Eddie.
Yeah, you gotta look at this way. There's no way we re-sign him after this. I mean, this is a rental. If you think you can win the Stanley Cup this year with Steven Stamkos, and you I mean, you don't win the cup and you do this deal, you lose the deal no matter what. I mean, you're giving up all those prospects for nothing, because there's no way he's gonna fetch market value when he goes to UFA, and that's $10 to $11 million per year. There's no way the Ducks can re-sign him for that value, and then he'll end up going to a team that can. I mean, a lot of people have said Toronto is going to be in for him. I mean, there's going to be tons of suitors for him. But yeah, you don't make this deal unless you know that you're going to win the Stanley Cup. And obviously that's hard. But I mean, he comes to the Ducks. It's hard to write them off against anybody. I mean, Getzlaf, Perry, and Stamkos. Like that instantly addresses your scoring issues, and it makes you just an offensive powerhouse. But yeah, I mean, you would have to expect we'd give up our first round pick. Probably Vatanen. Maybe a prospect, Richie or Nason or Kadillis. And then another, I don't know, another piece that you'd have to give up a lot because this is a superstar that you'd be pursuing. And if you don't win the cup, like I said, the deal's a bust, and you gave up those prospects for nothing. So yeah, I don't see it as Murray doesn't like to give up prospect for nothing. I mean, it is Steven Stamkos, but yeah, I don't see him taking that risk. But it might be hard to pass up the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something we're gonna have to wait and see. I mean, like you said, I don't think it's likely because, as you mentioned, if the Ducks were to do it, they would want him to be on the team for years to come. And like you said, it's a huge high price tag, and that kind of leads us into our other question. We had one from Zach. He asks, about Raquel and Lindholm getting resigned, and obviously those guys are issues. So is Anderson too. I mean, the Ducks have got to, shore up these RFAs, Eddie. I mean, unless they try to go after a big name player like Stamkos and they trade away a bunch of the RFAs, this is something the Ducks really have to work on. And I do think that they will keep Raquel and Lindholm, especially with the agent situation getting cleared up with Anderson and Lindholm.
Yeah, you would have to think Raquel with his improved play. He's a guy that they're already talking with, and he has to be resigned. And Lindholm's another one as well. He's been arguably our best defenseman all season. Over the last 10 games, he's been amazing the way he's distributed the puck, the way he's played defensively. He laid a pretty nice hip check on Hossa last night. I mean he's gonna be one of your top defensemen for the next 10 years. I mean, you have to re-sign him. And then it comes down to it as well. I mean, Anderson, you would expect him to resign him, but you never know. I mean, it all depends on how much he's asking for. You would think Gibson is probably the goalie for the future. I mean, Anderson's a great goalie. They're both really good goaltenders, so it's a tricky situation there. I mean, that kind of leaves Vatanen out there as well. I mean, he's been up in trade rumors. If he doesn't get traded, you don't have to trade him because he's an RFA. You can still trade his rights and get something for him. So I think that's probably the last guy they deal with, and they figure it out from there.
Yeah, I agree with you, and we're going to find out, real soon here in the next couple of weeks, because I'm still of the opinion you trade one of the defensemen and you get that forward you need. I mean, obviously, Stamkos is superstar quality, and I don't think it's that level. I think it's more of we've talked about other players. Ladd is one of my favorites. Ericsson's another one too that's been thrown around out there, and of course Murray said that he's looking at players that haven't been mentioned either. So who knows? Maybe you're right and Stahl comes to town. I don't know, but the Ducks will make a move, I do think, before the trade deadline, especially now with Stewart being out, which is just completely unfortunate. I mean, he's done so well for this team, has done so much added physical play and scoring. So that's something they're going to have to look at. In terms of the goalie situation, I'm still of the opinion you keep both, Eddie. That's the way I feel. I think that they're, if you can do it financially, I talked about this on social media earlier this morning, actually. If you can do that, that's what I would do. If you can't, then yeah, you bring Hudobin up and then you trade probably Anderson. I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't think it will, with the agent situation getting cleared up. But as we've seen, Murray's done some things before, so it's just something we're going to have to keep our eyes on, Eddie.
Yeah, I think you resign them now. I think there should be enough space to resign them. And then down the road, if you think you have to trade one, then they're under contract and you get more from them than you would for trading their rights. I think it's a no-brainer really to sign them right now, to sign both of them and just wait it out. I mean, I don't think they're both going to command high value over $5 million each. So I think you should have enough room to sign both of them for now to pretty good contracts for both them and for the team. And then you figure it out from there. You see who you want to run with for the long run. I mean, I think they're leaning towards Gibson because of his age and the difference between him and Freddie. But you sign both and you keep it going. You get another shot at deciding who you want as your number one.
Yeah, that kind of plays into this coming up week here. The Ducks are going to play Calgary tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific time, and then Edmonton the next day at 6 p.m. So, it looks like Anderson's going to get that start tomorrow. Nothing official yet. We do know that Hiller's probably going to go for Calgary with Kerry Ramo being injured this weekend. So it looks like that's going to be the matchup tomorrow. And then if Gibson can't go, maybe Hudobin goes against Edmonton on Tuesday, Eddie. I don't know. I don't know if they would put Anderson back to back. So it's going to be kind of an interesting situation this week. We've got three Pacific opponents again, and the Ducks. These are all 4-point games. These are teams that are all right behind the Ducks. The Ducks can win these three games, Eddie. They can really put some distance behind all of these teams, and make it a Sharks, Ducks, Kings, all California, basically a playoff type race.
Well, yeah, and I mean the next 7 of 8 games are all against Pacific Division teams, so it's definitely going to be an important stretch. I mean, the Flames, Oilers, Canucks games aren't as important as they were, earlier on in the season. They've kind of created some distance between those teams right now. I believe they are 8 points up on 8 or 9 points up on Calgary and like 12 points up on Edmonton with some games in hand. So, the losing a game here against those teams isn't a huge thing. Obviously, you would like to beat them. They're still Pacific Division rivals, but yeah, I mean they're not as important games as they were earlier on the season. They're games they should be winning. Hiller did come again in that game against San Jose for Calgary and play amazing and win them that game. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, the Ducks obviously know a lot about Jonas Hiller. They're playing in Calgary, where Calgary has played decent this season. They've been pretty terrible on the road, obviously, and especially when they come back to Honda Center on February 21st. I think we'd all expect a win there. But yeah, no, it's going to be an important 2-game stretch here on Monday and Tuesday. It's an early game, like you said, in Calgary at 1 p.m. Pacific time, and well, you would expect Freddie to go that night. We'll have to see how Gibson is feeling, if he can go against the Oilers on Tuesday, or maybe we'll see Hudobin. But yeah, no, it's still an important stretch against Pacific Division teams.
Yeah, and I think that the Ducks can win all three of these. We kind of make our predictions, which so we're not always right, but we're pretty close. And I really think the Ducks can, they should be able to take these three games. Looking at the standings, like you said, Vancouver is 6 points behind the Ducks, so it's not too far off. But Calgary slipped down; they're 9 points, and Edmonton's 12 points now in last place. So the Calgary and Edmonton are falling out of the race here pretty quickly, and Arizona and Vancouver both at 56 points at the time of this broadcast. So they're kind of trailing in there too. So I would look for the Ducks though to win these games. I really do. I think the way that they've been playing this last week, obviously they had a terrible game against Pittsburgh, but if you look at the other three games, they could have won all three, and they won 2 out of 3. A little bit of a lapse there, especially in the second period against Columbus, but the goals are still coming. They're still scoring. So I would look for the Ducks to hopefully win these three games, if not at least 2 out of 3, Eddie. And like you said, they're not as important, but still, you want to win the games in regulation. You want to beat the teams in the Pacific. The Ducks right now have 25 regulation wins. The Sharks have 27. And that's one of the tiebreakers too towards the end of the season. So that could be a factor when the Ducks come down to that second or third place in the Pacific, if the Kings do manage to hang on, which they've been slipping a little bit lately.
Yeah, I think it's important to get off to a good start here. I think the hardest game in the road trip is actually going to be Calgary. I mean, Vancouver does have the better record, but I think Calgary's a tougher team to play. They have the better record at home out of all three of the teams, and they're coming off a 4-1 loss to Arizona. They've Johnny Goodrow, Sam Bennett, Sean Monahan. I think they're a team that can have flashes of how they were last season. So you have to come out strong against them, and playing against Jonas Hiller, hopefully, they've learned a couple things and know where to shoot on him since when he played in Anaheim. But it's always tough to go in against a goalie who catches with the right hand. It kind of throws some guys off. I think the advantage of a lot of these players have been playing with him and know how to shoot against a goalie like that is an advantage. And then a big game going into to Edmonton on a back-to-back, tired legs after playing Calgary. Kind of an advantage of having an earlier game. You get a little bit more rest. But yeah, I mean, Edmonton, their last game was yesterday, and their next game is against us on Tuesday, so they get 2 days of rest. They're a young team. They're going to come out fast, and you're going to have to weather the storm. I mean, Connor McDavid and Eberle and Pouliot, that line has been great. So you're going to have to weather the storm in the first period against that team, and then continue your physical play from there. I think that back-to-back is going to be key, and we'll have to see how they start against Calgary on Monday.
Yeah, I agree. And once we find out the goalie situation too, which the Ducks just got the report now that they landed in Calgary, so they'll be practicing later today. So we'll probably have an update, after this is posted. It seems to be what happens when we do podcasts. Eddie. Usually, some team news comes out, right after we record it. So, obviously, if something comes up with that, we'll keep you updated. And hope you guys enjoy the updates that we've been doing on social media. We've been doing the game preview with a little photographic with the team logos and whatnot, trying to change it up. I used to just try to find images on Google and stuff, but now I figured out how to kind of put it together. Some of you helped me, and I really, really appreciate it. So I've been doing that for you guys this week. And also last night I had Phil Hewitt Vine on the Twitter with him, saying the Anaheim Ducks goal. I had talked to him earlier in the day, and he had pointed out to me, so I was able to ask him and use it. So you may see some of that more, just trying to change it up, get some more stuff going instead of just the same old photos and whatnot. And there's also been a Twitter poll that's been going on lately. I don't know if you noticed it. Our friends at Everything Hockey have been doing one. We're in the finals, actually, Eddie. I think right now we're trailing, but if you guys get a chance, go on Twitter and go to Everything Hockey and check out the poll that they posted. It's Everything Hockey, but it's without the second E and everything. So it's EVRY thing hockey, and it's on there. And right now we're kind of in second, but we've gone up against Refi Suck and a few other people, and we've been winning. So it's not too bad, Eddie. We may come up in second in this poll.
Yeah, we're losing to Pavel Barber right now. So. Yeah. We're up against some of the top hockey people on Twitter. I know it's just a little, kind of funny contest here, but it would always be nice to win against them. So, yeah, if everybody get on there and vote. I've already voted. I know a lot of people from DucksNPucks have already voted. So, I mean, we'll be retweeting it all the way through the finals.
Yeah, exactly. And today, and that's really it. We'll keep you up to date each week. Eddie and I will be back. Like we said, we'll have a special live show on the trade deadline day. We'll do that probably for a couple hours during that day, talking about the trades. You can come on there and discuss things with us, ask us questions. We'll have it all worked out. We went over the technical issues we had, so we'll be good there. And hopefully the Ducks keep rolling this week. A little up and down this last week. Hopefully they settle things down and keep it going. And we'll be back next week. Let's go Ducks.